what was the matter. The elf soon reported back that Santa was out of commission, and he would not be able to complete the flight. The elves scrambled into action at the North Pole, but try as they might, they could not come up with a suitable replacement. The Tooth Fairy was down with a bad toothache. He had been eating too many sweets. Old Man Winter had the flu. The Easter Bunny had a broken ankle because shelves that had not been properly built collapsed. Easter eggs had landed on them, scrambled his brain, and broken his ankle. Father Time said he would help, but he was a very old man, and he was very tired. All he could do was slow time down. Humpty Dumpty was called, but it was discovered that he had had a great fall just that morning. He had been scrambled and fed to the needy. The woman who lived in the shoe was called, but it was discovered that all those children had driven her quite mad. She had had to be sedated and committed to the funny farm. Snow White was searched for. The elves searched high and low, but try as they might, they came up short. I have it on good authority that Snow White was on a holiday getaway in a remote location that can't be reached at this time of the year. The elves asked the dwarfs to do it, but that was also a bust. Doc, the leader of the 7 dwarfs, was on a walk when the elves asked him to do it. He got all tongue-tied and flustered. He wasn't watching where he was walking. He fell down a hill and will be incapacitated for a few weeks. Grumpy gets even grumpier than normal at this time of the year. He told the elves, in no uncertain terms, that the answer was no. He then used foul words, which I can't mention here because they would make a sailor blush. Happy, of course, was very happy that the elves gave him the opportunity, but then he went into the back and took a hit of his happy juice. He passed out and was incapacitated for the rest of the night. Sleepy, of course, couldn't be asked in the first place because he was asleep. Bashful was embarrassed by all the attention he was getting. He ran off into the woods. He has not been seen or heard from since. Sneezy agreed at once and ran out to the sleigh to do it. He began to have extraordinarily powerful sneezes and ended up blowing the sleigh over. The presents went flying everywhere, and 3 reindeer were hurt in the rollover. Those 3 reindeer couldn't make the trip because of the injuries. Dopey was asked, but he refused to answer the elves. After a while, they moved on. Some of the elves grumbled. He is quite stuck up. He didn't speak a word. He could have at least said something, yea, nay, or take a hike. All would have been acceptable. The boogeyman came by while the elves were looking for a replacement and said he would be glad to assist. The elves feared that he would terrorize the children and traumatize them for life instead of delivering the presents. But the boogeyman swore he would behave, for the rest of the night at least. So the elves decided to give him a chance. Of course, the boogeyman had no intention of keeping his promise. When he came out to get in the sleigh, he showed his true colors by scaring off half of the elves. Some of the elves were so traumatized that they had to be sedated and put in the hospital for a month. The boogeyman scared the reindeer so badly that their bowels let go, and they dropped a load where they stood. The reindeer all ran off and were later found in a local bar drinking a good stiff one to calm the nerves. They all said they were trying to get lit up so they could be like Rudolph and guide Santa's sleigh. The elves informed them that even though they did all appear to glow, and their noses were red, they had it wrong. Rudolph did not get lit up before the flight. His nose would light up, and it glowed red. The boogeyman was told he was not needed, and he went off to haunt someone's dreams. The elves, in complete desperation, searched the workshop, but everyone had left for the night. They went through the front office and found an accountant by the name of Fred. Fred told them that they could count on him. He would be happy to help out. The elves consulted with one another. They argued back and forth. One elf even said, "He won't do. He's a nerd. Look at the pocket protector, the clothes, and the thick glasses. He will screw this all up." In the end, though, the elves all had to agree. There was no other choice. They were up a creek, and the only paddle they had was Fred. He would have to do. The elves informed Fred that they had decided he could do it, and he told them he would be ready in a jiffy. The elves went out to check on the new reindeer, and then began to wait for Fred. A few minutes later, Fred walked out. He looked nothing like he had a few minutes before. He was dressed in black from head to toe. His thick glasses were gone. He was wearing shades, even though it was the middle of the night. His pocket protector was nowhere to be seen. He swaggered out to the sleigh like Billy Be Damned, Cool Breeze, and Joe Cool all rolled into one. He thought he was all of that, and a bag of chips too. The elves all gave each other a look, then burst out into gales of laughter. Fred the accountant didn't notice, though. He had headphones on, and Bad to the Bone by George Thorogood could be heard blaring from them. Fred swaggered to the sleigh and slapped a bumper sticker on the back of the sleigh. The bumper sticker read, "If you don't like my driving, call 1-800-KISS-MY-BEHIND." The elves protested and told Fred that the bumper sticker would have to come off the sleigh. Fred told them the bumper sticker was staying, or he was walking and they could find someone else to deliver the presents. The elves consulted with one another, and in the end, they allowed the sticker to stay. The elves were between a rock and a hard place. They knew they had no one else to turn to. They did insist that Fred take the headphones off. He agreed at once. Fred hopped into the sleigh, took the headphones off, took the CD out of the player, and put it into the player in the sleigh. Bad to the Bone began to play through the speakers, and Fred cranked it up to full blast. He grabbed the reins, kicked the tires and light the fires. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. Let's see how many horses this sleigh has under the hood, Fred said. Fred whipped the reins, and the reindeer began to take off. Some of the elves began to run after the sleigh. "Turn the GPS on. It has all the stops logged into it," the elves screamed. "What GTO? I don't see a GTO. Did you guys install a GTO motor on the sleigh? That should really make the sleigh move," Fred said. Fred began to flip switches on the control panels. Toys and presents began to fly out of the sleigh, this way and that. 3 elves were hit by flying toys. One was hit by a red toy fire engine. One was hit by a toy ambulance, and the other one was hit by a hammer. They all had to be hospitalized for a few days. When the ambulance sleigh arrived later to get the 3 elves, it ran over an elf. The ambulance sleigh took that elf to the hospital as well, and he had to stay in the hospital for a few weeks. Fred disappeared out of sight in a flash, with toys and presents still flying out of the sleigh. The elves rushed into the workstation to track Fred's progress. They began to try to raise him on the radio, to tell him to turn the switches off and to turn the GPS on. By the time they finally raised Fred on the radio and got him to turn the switches off, 27 penguins, 13 deer, and 6 foxes had been hit by flying toys. Most of them had to be hospitalized for extended stays. One bear was also hit by an unidentified rectangular object. Fortunately, the bear was fine. The elves finally raised Fred on the radio, and after they got him to turn the volume down on the CD player, they told him, "Turn the GPS on." "Where is it located?" Fred asked. "It's right beside the CD player. It is a rectangular box," the elves said. "I thought that was one of those satellite radios. When it didn't work, I threw it out," Fred said. The elves shook their head. They realized they had just identified what had hit the bear. They told Fred to land immediately, and they would send somebody out with a backup GPS system so he could find all the houses to deliver presents to. Fred informed them he didn't need any directions. He knew where he was going. By the time the elves caught up to Fred and got him the GPS system, Fred had missed 3,805 houses altogether, and he had delivered presents to some houses 2 and even 3 times. Fred took 7 wrong turns, went the wrong way up one-way streets. He caused 13 accidents, and the police put out an APB on the red sleigh. He delivered presents to 913 people on the naughty list, thus encouraging them to be even naughtier the following year. After the elves got the GPS to Fred, he was able to deliver the rest of the presents without incident. Since Fred didn't know which houses he had delivered to and which ones he hadn't before he got the GPS, he refused to deliver presents to any of those. He argued that that would put them over budget, and it was totally unacceptable. Since he worked in accounting, the elves couldn't get him to deliver to those houses, even when they pointed out that it was clearly his fault. He told them that that was their problem, and he wouldn't budge an inch on it. That finishes up the story. If you didn't get any presents 3 years ago, now you know why. It was Fred's fault. Since that night, plans have been put in place, and there are 2 people standing by to take over if Santa has a problem. Fred is not one of those people. The 2 people are standing by, so Fred will never have to be used again. Santa and the elves never want a repeat of the fiasco that Fred caused. The end.
Where do you think you're going to put a tree that big? Bend over and I'll show you.